Hey now, everybody. Welcome to this special edition of DDO Players News. I am your host, Drac, and I am here with Patrick from DDOCast.
I'm not sure I should really be supporting this endeavor because I think you're trying to pad your count to catch up to me.
Shh, nobody's supposed to know. It's a secret. I'm
smarter than your average kobold. You don't get much past me.
I got a long way to go to catch up with you, sir. A long way to go.
Hey, what's the math? If you did two every week, how long would it take you to catch up with me?
Well, let's see. We just did 164 this week is the one that released. And what are you on?
505 will be this weekend.
So you're on 505.
So if I do 50 shows a year and you do 2 a week, how long does it take? So it's a fun math problem. It's like the trains going towards each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's like the airships going towards each other.
So it would take
a long time.
Yeah, a long time. I was trying to do it in my head, but I can't do it in my head. I had to pull up a calculator. But it would take a long time. But anyway, the real reason we're here, not to figure out crazy math problems, is to talk about the executive producer's letter that just dropped. It dropped on Monday evening, about 6:15 or so. I noticed it popped up on the forums. They had kind of teased that they were working on it. They were waiting for some approvals. And apparently everything got approved, and it is here. So we're here to talk about that and just kind of give our first reactions to that. So without further ado, let's jump right into that.
You sure you don't want to talk about math? I mean, I could talk for hours on weapon calculations.
You did used to get pretty crunchy back in the day. That is true.
I mean, it only took me 16 or 17 blog posts to do it.
At one point, I was going to repost those. I had talked to you about that, and you said I could repost those. I should probably get around to doing that, actually, because I think people might find those interesting, and I would assume they're still valid.
Yeah, I mean, the calculations all still work the same. I don't only pull out specific weapons of the last calculation. So the math all still works, but I don't... I think a small subset of people actually would have the stomach for that much math. It's very math crunchy stuff. So
they were pretty darn crunchy. I will give you that. So. But anyway, producer's letter. That's why we're here. To get this train back on the tracks, Patrick. I see what you're trying to do.
You said you wanted an hour-long show.
Again, secrets. People aren't supposed to know these things. You're giving away all of the secrets. No, we are here to talk about the producer's letter. As I said, it dropped on Monday evening, and Severlin posted over on the forums. So let's jump right into it. This is a letter from our executive producer, and he says, "Greetings. Our first year as Standing Stone Games is behind us, and we want to thank our fans for being a part of a wonderful year. We feel truly fortunate to have wonderful players, and we are excited for the upcoming year. I wanted to take some time to talk about plans for the upcoming months. The reason we are here is because you are here, and we look forward to hearing from you." So that's your standard. This is the letter. Thanks for reading it. And now the meat of the letter. Update 38 is going to be the next update, and that is going to arrive this spring, and they will return adventurers to Eberron. The magic that has long protected Stormreach is failing, and a strange plague is sweeping through the city. You'll join forces with the healers of House Jarasco to find a cure and save your adopted home. This new adventure pack will be level 14 on heroic difficulty and 31 on legendary difficulty. Part of this work will allow us to tweak House Jarasco as well to help players get around the space. So let's talk about that. Going back to Eberron.
Well, I think before we do that, we should go back to the first paragraph, because the first year of Standing Stone Games is nothing to shake a stick at.
True, it's true. I did kind of gloss over that, and I know you kind of mentioned it on DDOCast. We didn't really mark the occasion at all that they've actually been a year.
I mean, it's a pretty big deal that they broke off from Turbine and became their own studio.
Indeed, yes.
And it was a pretty big year too. I mean, they had 2 expansions. They could have easily taken a much more cautious approach. Oh, I don't know. Maybe they had to take a more ambitious approach just to put some money in the coffers to keep going.
Well,
but I think it's worth noting that, how many studios do you know that have done this? I mean, I only know the one, but I don't pay that close attention to other studios.
Right. Yeah, I can't. I'm just trying to think. I can't think of any that especially do like 2 expansions because we're talking about Mordor for Lotro, and of course Ravenloft for us here at DDO, and those weren't small expansions either.
Nope.
Both of those were iconic to the brand and the game because Mordor is very iconic to Lord of the Rings, and Ravenloft is iconic to Dungeons & Dragons, so talking about jumping into the fire and going full bore into it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, they were big up. It wasn't just like from the lore perspective, but Ravenloft is about as big as updates we've ever had. It's about the same size as Menace of the Underdark. It's a little smaller than Menace of the Underdark just from the standpoint of explorer areas, but it's still probably one of the largest updates in content, plus it had more items that they've ever done in a release, sentient weapons, a new enhancement tree. There's a lot of stuff that came out with it, so it was a big year for them, and I don't think it should be glossed over.
And I agree, and I'm glad you pointed that out. I didn't even... I guess I'm just used to them being Standing Stone games. I don't think about, this is only the first year, and this would be... I guess this would be the second letter we've gotten since they were Standing Stone, because we had a letter last January right after the Switch, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to think of when.
Sounds about right.
I think that was after the Switch. Yeah. So, congratulations on the year. I think you guys did great, and it sounds like they have some big plans for 2018 as well. As I said, our next update is going to be update 38. What do you think about that? We're jumping back into Eberron, which kind of caught my eye. I thought that was different because we've been spending a lot of times in the Forgotten Realms, and now we're jumping back into Eberron.
They tend to go kind of back and forth a little bit. I think you're going to see probably more stuff come out in Eberron than Forgotten Realms over time, just because there's more locations there that they can pull from, and there's less gating problems. Because I think if you're going to Forgotten Realms, you still have, it's not just easy to get there for a new level 1 character. So there's some stuff with that it kind of makes sense that they'd be going back to Eberron.
And I thought the little note that it will allow them to tweak House Jarasco as well to help players get around the space.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
I don't have problems in House Jarasco. Is that like a big issue for people running around Jarasco?
I don't think so. Not any more than any other houses.
Yeah, I was going to say, now I get kind of confused in House Fjarlin a lot because that's kind of like multi-layered in a way. But Jarasco, no. So I thought that. So I'll be interested to see exactly how they tweak Jarasco.
I have a feeling it'll be more about ergonomics than anything like really crazy. Because there's a lot of stuff that kind of hides in House Jarasco, right? Like Fred is there, Ravenloft is there. So there's a couple like special things that are a little hidden and out of the way. But there's places that are far more hidden than that. So.
And then, of course, the storyline of the quest sounds interesting, and this is, of course, all SSG cooking this up. There's nothing that I can think of in D&D lore where there was ever any kind of like plague or anything like that was surrounding just House Jarasco itself. So I would assume this is like an in-house story that they've come up with, but I think it should be interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not so sure about the level range. 14 is... I guess looking at the list, it's probably about right. But there's more 14s than 13s available, for example. And so there's a couple of other places where I think it might have been better served to stick to levels, but...
Yeah, I saw that I can't remember if it was on Reddit or in the actual forums that somebody brought that up too, that said if you look at the quests that are available at 14, there's plenty of options. It should be, and I think I saw like 12 and 13 brought up that they thought that's where it should start at on the heroic side.
That whole level range is kind of a little lower than most anyway, so like 10 to 14 tends to be a little slow, I think. Even 15 to a certain extent.
I'm trying to think, what are other quests that are in Jarasco now? Aren't they?
They're level 6 and 11.
Yeah, I was going to say
if you're not counting Delares, which is a little bit all over the place.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say it seems like they're on the lower end of this, so this would be kind of higher end, other than Delares, but that's its own monster anyway, as you could say.
So, in the grand scheme of things, the heroic levels aren't really hurting for XP in general, anyways. I mean, it's not particularly hard to get through heroics if you just run quests. So there's really hard to say that there's a shortage of quest levels in any of those heroic ranges. The level 25 is pretty sparse though, but I don't think I think they're going to be. It's unlikely that there's going to be a whole lot of non-legendary updates going forward.
Yeah, it seems like everything that they're doing is always legendary 31
or 32, kind of in that range. But yeah I mean, it's Reaper mode's gonna, in the way they have Reaper XP, it's gonna encourage people. It's gonna encourage people wanting to run level 30 plus and other stuff like that. So it's not particularly surprising that it's that level.
Okay, and then we'll jump back into the producer's letter. Seb goes on to say, we will also be doing a bit of work on the anniversary event. This is going to include some new event rewards as we celebrate DDO's 12th year. We will have a special gift for players as well, but do not want to spoil the surprise.
I mean, that's pretty par for the course. There's usually some sort of a gift for players, so.
Right, yeah. I mean, this was nothing too shocking. The big thing about this part I just took, it's like 12 years. That's awesome. It's awesome the game is still around after 12 years.
I think the one thing that kind of sticks out to me is with the anniversary event, it seems like they're kind of shortcutting what they do for the anniversary event. Although, to be fair, it's not like they ever really did a whole lot in that time frame, but I think it's unlikely we're going to see much more than the anniversary event going forward. Maybe they might throw a new party quest out eventually, but they weren't exactly doing anything before anyways, so
right.
I don't think it's a loss. It's just kind of a observation.
Basically, it's just something fun to do, a little side trek you can do, and you get a free gift out of it, so...
it's an easy way to deliver the gift, depending on how they want to do it. So
exactly. So I guess it'll be interesting to see, how they tweak it, and actually what the new event rewards are going to be, and of course the free gift. That's always fun because free is good.
And for a weed whacker.
Why?
I don't remember
weed whacker.
I don't remember what show it was, but it might even be one that the roundtable we recorded beforehand. I think it was the one that we recorded this weekend, so it'll be on DDOCast officially in a couple weeks probably. But we were talking about how there's, you can get a smiter for constructs and a banisher. You can vorpal a lot of things, but there's nothing to like instantly kill plants. So we need a weed whacker.
Now that you bring that up, that is true. And of course we have a lot of new plant monsters now. So hey. There you go. Maybe you're psychic. Maybe you're calling it.
Unlikely.
Yeah. Something tells me.
If I was psychic or they were listening to me, they would have come out with a lot of other things.
Versus a weed whacker, right. And then I think what a lot of people are buzzing about right now, going back to the letter, is one of the things we have long heard from you is about the desire to have a third Artificer enhancement tree. And we're pleased to be able to say that the Renegade Master Maker will be coming in the near future. This tree will focus on improving your repair spells, curative admixtures, personal defense, and building things to buff you and your allies. We also intend to add a third favorite soul tree update the Cleric War Priest and do extensive work on the Druid class. For the Druid, we will be working on the core of the class, its animal forms, and both of its existing enhancement trees, in addition to a brand new enhancement tree. So where to begin on this?
With the Druid, I kind of imagine they're probably going to start almost from scratch. Like, start with a car, like chassis of the car, and gut the whole system and rebuild it. It's kind of the impression I keep getting on that, reading between the lines. It probably won't be quite that extensive, but that's kind of what it feels like. The Artificer thing, we've been hearing about. I mean, they've had plans for pretty much all this stuff for a while. This is kind of a theme of it's getting a little ahead of ourselves, but like the whole vibe I kind of got away from the producers' letters. Not to like spoil the mood or anything, but and it's great that we got it. But I probably could have wrote this myself. like nothing's normally surprising, right? Like update 38's coming out in the spring. Yeah, that's normal. Can be legendary. That's normal. Yeah. The anniversary's coming back. Yeah. Special gift for the anniversary. Yeah. I mean, they kind of already talked about the Artificer tree on the Ask the Devs episode, but I mean, we've known that they wanted to add a third Artificer tree, third favorite soul tree, all the stuff that's in here. They've been talking about for well over a year. So
yeah, I'm almost positive. I would have to pull it up and go back to the last, like the producers letter we got in January of I think last year. I think they talked about that Artificer tree. So I agree.
It wasn't specific. I mean, it was like they knew that they wanted to do it. I think Mordor and Ravenloft took a lot of their resources out of the picture that would normally be on some of that stuff. But
yeah, and they had constantly, brought that up. It's like, right now we're all about Mordor. Okay, Mordor's done, out the door. Right now we're all about Ravenloft. So now I think they can take some time and breathe and go, okay, well, let's do some of this stuff that we want to do. I don't play an Artificer, so I don't know. Is the third tree really needed on the Artie?
I mean, I would say yes, just from the standpoint that every class should have at least 3 trees, just from the standpoint that it creates different build choices and we're seeing things going on, and that's always better. I would say that, this is kind of in line with, this is one of the things that does kind of stand out. There's giving more specifics about the Artificer tree. Defense is kind of something that I think a lot of people, if you ask them that play Artificers, would say probably needs to be improved. Like they need options for defense. But it's not necessarily surprising either. I mean, it's kind of the thing that was obviously missing from some of that stuff. The repair spells and curative admixtures is kind of interesting just from the standpoint that it's kind of included in the one of the existing trees. So we'll see kind of how that shakes out.
How they make it different than the other trees. Like I said, I don't play an Artie, so I know nothing about the Artie.
Yeah, there's Battle Engineer, and then Arcano Technician or something like that. And the Arcano Technician one, you get a couple of SLA curative admixtures. So it's kind of interesting from the standpoint that you kind of wonder if they're going to pull some of the stuff out of that tree and put it in this tree and how that's going to play out. But
then I know the other thing that's kind of getting some buzz is the Cleric War Priest. Do you think that needed changed? Or is it okay as is? Why just the War Priest? Are they...
I believe the other ones, there's nothing really wrong with them. And there's something wrong with the War Priest tree, but they've been using Swashbuckler as kind of their metric for a long time in terms of balance, and the War Priest is probably not anywhere near that. Although the domains probably help a little bit, but that's not the enhancement tree either, right? So,
right.
I mean, you can take it as a litmus test. How many people run around in the War Priest tree? Yeah, not a lot.
And then the next part of our letter is something people have been waiting for a long time. Seb says, another thing we have long wanted to do is update our Treasure of Crystal Cove event. And we intended to start doing that work in the coming months by updating the reward list. And speaking of events, we have plans for the Night Revels. They are going to update the public space to work similar to the challenge system its dungeons use, and add a new dungeon for our favorite Halloween event. October is historically one of our biggest months, and we think you'll love what we have in store.
I'm curious to see what they mean by update the public space.
Yeah, I caught a little bit of Cordovan's weekly live stream today. Since the servers were doing maintenance, he was just basically taking questions. And he kind of talked about that. I got it on the tail end of that. I have to watch the video back so I can get the whole conversation. But I guess what they want to do is make it to where it's like challenges where you can just, if I understood him right, you can just enter the dungeon. You don't have to farm for the keys or anything. They want to get away from like the camp farming because that's causing the lag out there, which, everybody knows. If you've done the Night Revels at all, you know how bad it is out there. And that's just because people are camp farming and it's usually warlocks. I'm a warlock. I will say that. It's usually warlocks.
I can do that this year because my warlock was a wizard.
So, I
foolishly made that change like a week before it came out. Like, I should know better. That was silly. Yeah,
you should have waited. So, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Like I said, I got to go ahead and watch that video back because I got in on the tail end of that conversation, but that's kind of what I understood. They're trying to design it to where they can get around all of the camp farming and everything that is going on. And then Crystal Cove,
just take the keys out of it and just say you can run this once an hour.
Right. That's exactly it. Just put like some kind of timer limit on it or whatever and just be done with that. I never understood why you had to get the whole key situation anyway.
Well, I think people probably wouldn't like it from the standpoint that you can't just like chain farm one quest over and over and over again, but I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily fun, just like the camp farming isn't fun. So
right, yeah.
Well, if they're listening to me this time,
this is where you need to listen. If you're listening,
just take the keys out of the situation, and you can only run each dungeon once in an hour. It's like an hour cooldown or something.
There you go. See, I would be happy with that. And then Cove, they've talked about wanting to update the loot, and people have wanted the loot updated for a long time. So I guess we'll see how that works. I would
bet you there's a dagger.
Why? Because there's always a dagger? Why do you say?
No, because Vistani needs more. They need more daggers to support Vistani.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. That's right. We have Vistani Knife Fighter now. We need more knives, so there you go. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that as well. And then, of course, the new dungeon, I'm sure they'll do good with that, because I think all the work they've done on Night Revels with the dungeons, where they kind of, spookify the dungeons, I think they've done good at all. And then again, it's just something fun. It's not supposed to be, anything that you have to farm it if you want to get, your reward or whatever. But it's just supposed to be something fun. And so I'll be interested to see what the dungeon they choose this year.
It'd be fun to be a fly on the wall for the discussion of what dungeon they're going to pick.
Exactly. I would love to be on that discussion. And another discussion I would love to be on is the classic adventure packs that they do. Going back to the producer's letter, we are pleased to announce our next classic adventure. An eccentric wizard has hidden 3 famous sentient weapons inside a volcano and challenged all comers to try to retrieve them. Can you make it through the fiendish obstacles and deadly traps?
Yes.
Have you guessed the pack yet? It's White Plume Mountain. It is a classic 1979 dungeon that was recently brought to 5th edition via the Tales from the Yawning Portal book. We will be giving this intense test of skill the DDO treatment later this summer in a new adventure pack that will also have several other standalone dungeons themed around wizards and their arcane environments. So White Plume Mountain.
So this is one of those. This is probably the most exciting thing about the producer's letter, and even then, this is kind of why I kind of have the feeling that I feel like I could have wrote this, right? Because I think we're pretty much well established at this point that they're going to keep releasing classic dungeons. I mean, they tend to be very popular. They bring people in from outside that aren't playing DDO.
Exactly.
I mean, it's kind of an over, and they're doing a great job with them too. I mean, it's not that I don't want them to do it. It's just a matter of insert the name, right? And for me, White Plume Mountain doesn't mean I never played modules. We always made our own stuff. So it's not like it's a huge exciting thing for me. It makes sense from the standpoint that sentient weapons. It is kind of interesting that the adventure pack will feature several other standalone dungeons. So, I mean, right there, you're probably talking about 6 or 7 dungeons. So
I would say that's a good good guess, probably.
Which is pretty big for an update. I mean, that's usually more content than we get in an update. Usually an update has about 5, anywhere from 1 to 5 dungeons. It's kind of individual kind of quest packs and chain arcs and stuff like that tend to have at most 5 dungeons. So.
And I did over on the website, and I'll put a link in the description of this video and on the show notes for this, that I put up a little thing today that was a look back at S2 White Plume Mountain, just for people that have never played the module and you don't know what it is. So if you kind of want to see what the module was all about, I talked about it. I did put a spoiler warning on it because I don't know exactly what they're going to do. And this is a very spoiler-ish dungeon because there's iconic things that happen in this dungeon. There's iconic fights that you have to do to actually get the sentient weapons back. So I don't know if they're going to, how they're going to DDOify it, we'll say. So I did put a spoiler warning on it, but if you want to check that out, you can. It is one of the all-time classic dungeons. This dungeon is constantly, when people put up like their top 10 list, this one is always in the top 10, and it's usually fairly high. I think the last time people did a list, it was like rated 3 or 4, I think. So, and then Dungeon Magazine, which when Wizards was still doing Dungeon Magazine, they rated it the 9th best module of all time. So, yeah, and you can take that with a grain of salt. Some people are saying, no, it should be number 1. But, it's the original module, without spoiling it, there was a lot of traps and there was a lot of puzzles. And when I say puzzles, a lot of it there was a lot of like riddles and things like that you had to solve. And there was like some traditional puzzles to do. And the other exciting thing is there is so many new monsters that they could add if they want to go that route. This module did introduce some new monsters as well. So I'm interested to see exactly what they do. And to kind of go along with what you said, I should say, yes, we're always going to get classic modules. I think it's great. And I think they tend to do them justice because,
yeah, I'd say so.
You have to take into the consideration you're going from the tabletop to a video game. So you have to take some liberties with it and change it a little bit because, a strict tabletop module would not work in a video game. Let's face it, there's just a lot of differences between a video game and tabletop. So, but overall, I'm excited for this. I have fond memories of playing through this, so it will be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I should say it's not like I'm not excited about having this thing. My comment about the producer letter writing itself is
right. Well, yeah, and
you can pretty much expect that you're going to keep doing classic modules because they've been really popular. The only reason that some of them aren't really being run very often is the quality of loot and whether or not people want it. Temple Elemental Evil was less popular not because it was bad content, but because it was really grindy, and a lot of people weren't into that. So,
and DDO Central's in the chat saying, as long as we get the giant crab and the manticores. Yes, manticore, indeed. We need the manticore. That is a classic monster, and that monster figures in a lot of places in this module. So we have to have the manticore.
Good monster to get.
Yeah, and then again, that's another one of those iconic D&D monsters, in my opinion. So, but we'll see. So it's pretty exciting to see this, and then going back to our producer's letter this time. Seb says, we are happy with the feedback we have received about sentient weapons and the release of the Mist of Ravenloft. And we plan to continue to support that system in 2018. In addition to the sentient weapons available in White Plume Mountain, we intend to add a Kobold-themed sentient jewel for the 12th anniversary, and also are creating a dragon-themed jewel for as yet unannounced release date. So we're getting a Kobold sentient weapon.
I don't find that particularly surprising.
I don't either. That just seems like it would be a given. Because
that's one of those things. It's good that they're announcing it, but it's not. I don't find it highly surprising. It's like,
yeah, I don't either, and I don't think anybody.
You've already talked about adding more stuff to the anniversary event, and they usually add something to those events every year, anyways, to kind of try to keep them fresh for people to come out to do them. And sentient weapons is the low-hanging fruit right now to add, and people are going to be interested in getting more options and more voices and stuff for sentient weapons, and Kobold would be pretty high on the list for a lot of people, and the dungeon, the anniversary event is kind of a no-brainer.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. And the only thing I'll add to this is you better get Cindy Robinson to do the voice again, because she is the Kobold. So that just, you can't do a Kobold sentient and not have Cindy voice it.
I get a mutiny.
Exactly. People will riot, SSG. They will riot.
I mean, that was probably the only. I would guess that would be the only thing holding a Kobold sentient weapon back is getting her to do the voice.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And then, because basically all they have to do is write the lines for it and get her, to make it fit in the schedule. And kind of a dragon themed sentient, that makes sense as well too. So, but it'll be interesting to see how they incorporate that, as he says, an unannounced. So we'll see exactly how that's going to work. But just kind of, since I don't have a level capped character, so I've never played with the sentients, what are your thoughts on them?
You don't have to be capped. You just have to be an epics.
Yeah.
No, they're fun. The voices are kind of neat. The one kind of problem with them is, it's kind of an innate problem, right? Is that it's running a script, so X happens and you get Y response from the weapon. So I found that they get a little old pretty quick, just because you're going to hear the same. I think there's like 80 lines, I think is what I heard, but it feels like you hear the same 20 about 10 times a night. So, that's kind of the only drawback to them. But they're fun and they're very flavorful. And it's definitely worth kind of hearing them, collect them all and see what they all sound like, kind of an experience. And the mechanics are really good with it. I really like how it all works, and that you can say, oh, there's a new sentient weapon, and I want to transfer all my sentient XP to that sentient weapon, and you can do that, and that's fantastic. So it's a really well-designed system. It's a fun system, but it has the likelihood and the capacity to easily become stagnant over time if you're not careful.
And I think that kind of goes along with what I said about having to tweak the classic modules as well. It's a video game. You can't do what you do in tabletop.
Yeah, and that was always going to be the limitation.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's kind of the part that you really want it to
right. Yeah,
to shine. But no, they are really good, and they're fun. And I think most people I know have been able to find one that they mostly kind of find interesting. But probably for every person that can have one on all the time, you kind of probably have someone turning it off too. So,
and I know those filigrees have made people rich on the auction house,
which is funny because it's not they drop in large numbers, so it's not hard to get them. But it's the getting the lightning to strike and get the one specifically that you want is kind of more the trick than anything else.
And then to wrap up our letter for January here, Seb says, we have another big announcement to make. It's coming later this year, but we're not ready to hint about the news yet. Sorry. Stay tuned for an announcement about an adventure that has been on many of our players' wish list for years, and we can't wait to tell you about it. On behalf of everyone on the D&D online team, we thank you for your support. We've been humbled by the responses to the Mist of Ravenloft, and we look forward to continuing our amazing tabletop-to-screen journey with you in 2018 and beyond. Seb.
Tease.
Yeah, I gotta say, he always has to end on a big tease.
Well, I mean, they usually do that anyways. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's all good stuff in the letter. It's all pretty exciting. It's a little, it's kind of a little funny that, like, hey, we're gonna have this producer's letter, and then it doesn't come out for a little bit, probably about a week and a half more than you kind of wanted it to take to get it out, and then it kind of says pretty much what you'd expect it to say. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, at least to me, the like bane of all these producers letter. People get so excited about them, and they're always like asking him on his live streams, when's the producer's letter coming? When's it coming? And people put posts on the forums, where's the producer's letter? It's supposed to be here. Where's the producer's letter? And then it's always usually the same stuff every time.
Well, it's exciting.
So,
it is.
It's
just a formula, right? So,
right.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like,
yeah,
that's what I said. I probably could have written this letter and posted it, and it probably would have been about 90% the same, just like insert names here and there.
The biggest thing I take out of this letter is content. We're getting more content.
Yeah.
Which is always a good thing.
Content and finishing kind of some longer term projects in terms of the class passes and stuff like that. And like I said, it's all great stuff to hear. The content that they're teasing sounds good and interesting. I like when they do. I like seeing what they come up with. So I'm glad it's they're still doing original stuff. And I'm glad they're doing classic stuff. Should be a good year.
And it's funny to see people on the forums. All these speculation about the next classic module coming out that everybody has wanted for years. People are like throwing names out, and people are like, "No, sure. it can't be that. It's this. It can't be that. It's this." So yeah, it'll be interesting. And I have my own theories, but we'll just leave it at that.
It's an exciting mix of stuff. I don't think there's anything earth-shattering or crazy. Maybe that's just me coming on, being the guy that follows the news closely and coming off of last year when I was like, hey, we're going to be a new company.
Right, yeah. You can't really top, starting your own company, like leaving one company, forming another one, and then putting out an expansion like Ravenloft. So,
yeah, I mean, last year was a really big
this
high,
is good.
I think Ravenloft in general kind of generated a little bit more excitement than White Plume Mountains, but I think White Plume Mountains is also pretty exciting. But again, for me, it's these are all just modules that I've never played, so
yeah,
the ones we have are great. Bring on the next one. I look forward to enjoying it.
I think you're gonna see White Plume is gonna bring some old grognards out of the woodwork, because that's one a lot of people love, and that's one of the classic modules. So I think you're going to see old grognards go, DDO has White Plume Mountain. I need to check that out. So overall, good job. Like I said, the thing I take from it that I was happy to see is content. They're not just going to rest on the laurels and just, kind of, okay, we'll just put out maybe one dungeon or we'll update that anniversary event. No, we're getting lots of content. And you have to remember, this is only for like the first half of the year. So we usually see, this is the, I guess you would call it the winter letter. And then
it's a little more than that. Right. Probably the thing that but yeah, what you're saying about the content is pretty true, because based on what they said about what's coming in the spring, the next update, that's probably going to be 2 to 4 quests. It sounds like there's going to be a little bit of story, so it doesn't sound like it would just be one quest. So maybe I would guess probably 2 or 3 quests. The White Plume stuff, and several other wizard experiences. So that's probably another 6 quests or so. And then by then, usually we have an update in kind of the October. The fall time frame, and then one at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So you figure one of those is going to be whatever the big announcement is that they're working on, but they're not ready to talk to us about yet. So,
right, I'll say that will probably come out maybe November, December, maybe.
Yeah, it's usually when
probably. Yeah,
there'll probably be a small one between the summer White Plume, and it'll probably be Night Revels, and maybe something else depending on what they're talking about.
So overall, I'm excited. It sounds like 2018 is going to be another great year for DDO, and that's always great to hear. I guess that's what we can take away from it.
Yep.
So is there anything you want to talk about DDOcast? What's going on? What's going on with DDO Splat? Any of that before we wrap this special edition of the podcast up?
DDOCast Spot is Tuesdays, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv/DDOcast. And we're having some fun with that. We play some stuff on Reaper. We're not being too totally crazy with the challenge these days, but that doesn't stop us from dying. It's been a lot of fun with those folks. DDOCast, the podcast, is usually once a week. I did change the format recently, so I changed how I create the format. I didn't really change the format itself. I'm still kind of doing a news section and a roundtable discussion, but what I'm doing now is recording the roundtable part separately and beforehand, and then kind of splicing I kind of cut those up now instead of it just being one long podcast. So it's kind of helping me reduce the time load on my end, kind of milk out some of the topics a little bit longer, but also just kind of give them their due, because we'd end up, having a roundtable discussion and then like, oh, geez, we've been talking about this for an hour. We're trying to keep the show an hour and a half, which means we've got to wrap this up. You kind of lose the back half of the conversation and then cruise through the news super fast and not really talk about that. So it's been good, a good change, I think, at least on my end. So no one's complaining about it. So
that's what I was going to ask. How has the reaction to that change been from the community or your audience?
As far as I can tell, no one's noticed.
Well, good.
I haven't got any feedback one way or the other. So
awesome. And when's your next episode going to be released?
Usually it's released Sunday night or Monday night, and that usually has more to do with when I find time to record it. Like this weekend, this last episode didn't come out till Monday night, but that's because I recorded it Sunday night. So usually if you're looking to get it as fast as you can, subscribe on YouTube. That's usually where it gets posted first, because I usually let it sit there for a day there for a couple reasons. One, it's easier to kind of find the timestamps after it's been up for a while, because it generates the preview stuff. That's not available right away, which kind of makes it easier to kind of go through the paces. But also, I kind of put it up there, and so if there's something really wrong with it, I figure the first 2 or 3 people will let me know before I send it out to the world. But this week we're recording the news section on Saturday, so it should be out Sunday, probably before the Super Bowl, just because if I don't get it before, then it won't be until Monday probably. So.
Don't want to compete with that.
Yeah, so. But that's kind of usually the general pacing. I try to get out Sunday night, and then unless I'm recording late Sunday night, then it's usually Monday morning or Monday evening.
And we currently have 19 supporters over on our Patreon. If you would like to help support DDO players, you can simply go to our donations page, and there you can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. You will also find rewards, including a mention on the podcast of your choice, or you can even guest for an appearance right here on DDO Players News. You can send us an email if you'd like at podcast@ddoplayers.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Players Ally, and that is ALLY. That is our network. DDO Players can be found on Twitter at DDO Players. Myself is Dracula_72. Pine Leaf can be found at Pine Leaf Needles. And you can follow Patrick and DDOcast at DDOcast. And then, of course, it's DDOcast.com, and it's twitch.com/
twitch.tv/DDOcast.
Yeah, sorry, it's twitch.tv/DDOcast. That's where Patrick can be found, and you can find that in the show notes as well. And the Players Alliance does have 2 live shows every Monday evening. We have DDO Players News. That starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. On Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, we have Lotro Players News. And our XP Quest show is now back. They do not have a set time they record. It will go live, so if you're following the Players Alliance, you will get updated on that. The best way to find out more information on XP Quest is to just head over to the XP Quest website. You can grab the latest episode and find out all of the information there. And you can join us for all of our live shows over at ddoplayers.com/live. So that is it for the special edition of DDO Players News. And I will leave you with this thought. I hope the RNG is kinder to you than it always is to me.